Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Facebook did not let me do what I needed to do before I got on, so I'm working. Good morning. Stop in. Say hi. Tell me where you're from. Are you getting rain? Oh my gosh. We have gale force winds today. It did not rain yesterday. I did not even go on Facebook this morning to see if the western side of our state got hammered. I saw Sydney, Montana had massive hail last night because we were supposed to be getting bad weather. But when the storm chasers are in your area, it is never a good sign. And the storm chasers were on the western side of our state last night. So never a good sign. I did not talk to my parents yet to see what's happening, but here we could still use a little bit of rain. It would be nice if the wind went down and it didn't. We didn't have severe weather. But you know, it's super hot, super humid. Conditions are perfect. Perfect. All right, I've got some good stuff today. If somebody could make a comment, that would be awesome because I cannot. I don't know if I'm seeing my comments or not. Don't know. Let me see if I am on. Good morning. Say hello. You guys, here's the thing. This is social media. Hey, Brett, thank you. I appreciate that. How's it going this morning? Okay, you all, this is called social media so that we can be social. So we can talk to each other. I love how people are on social media and I call them creepers because they never say anything and they just listen. And that's good, I guess. We need the listeners because I like to talk. Hey, Sam, how are you? Good morning, Lee. Hi, George. Okay, for those of you that are maybe listening and have not heard me before and don't know who I am Mary Jo Irmen, the author of the book Farming Without the Bank and Life Without the Bank. And I teach the infinite banking concept, which is a concept written was taught to us by R. Nelson Nash, who is no longer with us, but he wrote the book Becoming Your Own Banker. So that's what we're doing here today, my friends. We are going to go over this week's meetings and basically what happened. So every week, if you are with me, you hear that I have a theme. This week's theme was money to absolutely no money. And so, I mean, like, no money. I had a couple people this week that had no money. And guess what? It's totally okay. Because now we have an idea of where we need to go from there. 100% fine with me. I actually like talking to people who don't have anything because somebody has to help give them ideas, right? And a lot of people would say, well, don't waste your time. They don't have any money. Well, guess what? We're here to help people. We're not just here to say, oh, I only want the wealthy. That's not how we operate in this office. So let's get started. We had one gentleman that he is working. He does not farm. He works in agriculture. He just has a I don't want to say 8 to 5 job because there is no 8 to 5 job in agriculture, but he just works for somebody else. And he is not farming. He would like to buy a place and kind of get into some stuff. But his main reason for calling me is because he read the book. Well, he listened to the book. And then he heard my Life Without the Bank book was out. And so he got that book and sat down and read it and said, you know what, that bleepity bleep sold me the wrong policy. Because Mary Jo, a year ago, I didn't listen to you and I went to the local agent and he said, oh yeah, I know Mary Jo. I know exactly what she's doing. I'm doing it as well. Guess what? He didn't know what I was doing. He did it wrong. He sold him a whole life policy, but he didn't sell him a banking policy. Because guess what? The company that he works for doesn't offer it. And they don't like infinite banking. And this young man is no longer even selling life insurance. So this guy's like, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, you have good whole life. You can save it. And you can wait 20 years to have some decent amount of cash value, or you can cancel it, right? Now, it is totally unethical, and I do not believe that people should cancel good whole life. It's totally up to him. He's like, well, if I cancel it, then what? I'm like, you're out $4,000. You blew it. You didn't listen. Oh, he said, I just listened to your podcast about slimy agents, and I am so mad. And I said, well, have you talked to the guy? I can't talk to him. I'm so ticked off. Some of the blame has to go back on the client because he didn't listen, right? He didn't call me. He didn't set up an appointment with me. Instead, he went to somebody else that doesn't know squat about infinite banking. If you go to Nelson's website and their name's not on there, guess what? They're not certified. There are a couple people in this country that are no longer certified that used to be. And even they have gotten away from the true reason of IBC and the true thought process behind IBC. And so there is a reason that there are those of us that are certified. It is not all about the policy. This guy's a policy, and guess what? He's not going to have any cash value, any decent amount of, basically, he has $300 of cash value when he should have like $3,000 of cash value. Oh, but I know what Mary Jo's doing. No, you don't know what Mary Jo's doing. Just because you're an agent that read the book doesn't mean squat. Because you probably didn't even read the first half of the book. You probably didn't even read Nelson's book. You know how many agents call me and then they say, well, I say, well, go to Nelson's website, learn the concept, get certified. The what? They don't even know who Nelson is. How do you read one of these books and not know who Nelson Nash is? Those of you that have read this book, you know who Nelson Nash is because I talk about it in the book. So if you don't know that after reading one of my books, it means you didn't read the book. So you guys get to choose what you want to do, but he's all ticked off. I'm all riled up, obviously, because he got sold a halfway decent policy. But it could have been better. It could have been correct. But saying, oh, I know who Mary Jo is, and I don't know this guy. So don't be telling people you know who I am if you don't know who I am. It's a good thing he's not in the business. Because if he was in the business, I'd be making a phone call. Pretty irritated. This guy has some credit card debt, though. Here's another thing. He's got credit card debt that's in counseling. He's got enough money. He's playing the markets. He's got some stuff in an Ameritrade account. So he's playing the markets while he's paying an attorney to take care of this credit card debt. I'm like, why don't you just take the money out of there and pay it off? These attorneys have fees. They're not doing this for free. What is your cash payoff? It's probably not even going to be what you owe. It may be less. Well, he called them in the spring, and guess what? They haven't got back to him. Why haven't they got back to him? Probably because they're not going to make as much money. I don't know. They might be good people, but, I'm a little skeptic. So pay that off, and then you're going to have that money every month. Instead, you're playing the market. Well, what happens when the market crashes? We have to be smart and do things in a timely manner. He just got this new job, and his boss said, well, that's if you don't want the 401k money, I'll just pay you cash. No big deal. Super nice guy. He's like, well, can you just talk to him and explain to him what he needs to do? Absolutely. Super nice guy. So, but he wants to buy a place and he doesn't have any money for a down payment. Well, where is that going to come? How are we going to do that? Have you talked to the bank? He hasn't taken those steps yet. So we need to talk to the bank so when something does come up, we're ready. We need to talk to the bank so we know how much we have to have for a down payment so we can make a plan. Okay? And the norm is I want these things, but I don't want to pay attention to the finances because I don't get it. Well, you don't get it because nobody's really explained it, right? Finance is not hard. It's just that we believe it's hard because nobody's truly explained it to us. It's not that hard. There's no reason to be scared of it. Now, I get it. There are parts of life that I don't like either, like decorating a house. As silly as that might sound, I have friends that are super good at decorating and picking things out. And I get so overwhelmed with it that I just leave the stores with nothing. And I don't have a lot of stuff on my walls. I don't have a lot of decorations going on. I just don't care about it. I can't see it. I can't visualize it. I think it's a waste. And a lot of people feel the same way about money. Some people feel the same way about health. They think that health is everything. And they're very engulfed in their health. And then they don't know anything about finance. And so I'm very open with understanding, you don't understand finance and it's very overwhelming to you. Let's break it down and make it as simple as we can. And for him, we really need to make it, him and many others, make it as simple as we can so it's not so overwhelming. But we have to start to pay attention because if we're already in credit counseling, we need to change what we're doing and pay attention. And kudos to him because he is constantly listening to the podcasts. And so he is constantly getting the information. He is not being lazy by any stretch of the imagination. He is getting on his feet and doing what he needs to do. And kudos to him for that. But let's not pay attorneys for things that we maybe don't need to pay them for. Because we've got the money sitting there. What good is it doing us in Ameritrade? Chances are we're not making in Ameritrade more than what we're paying somebody else. I had another client that her husband is an evangelist and she homeschools the children. And so he likes to do evangelist, missionary, whatever, that is their calling. That is fantastic. They have $0. They live off of whatever donations they get for whoever he is talking to. He is not a minister or a preacher. He does not have a church. He likes to do his stuff on the streets, which I think is awesome. And they are super awesome people. They inherited some money and she said, we need a vehicle. We need some computers. But do I put the money in the policy first? Well, no, because we have to keep paying the premium. And we don't know what their income is going to be. And they have $0 extra dollars. And so what they need is cash flow, right? And her and I talked about this, that they are not the bum on the street begging for cash flow. They're the missionaries on the street begging for cash flow, but they don't have any debt. So, she has a student loan. But outside of that, they don't have a mortgage, they don't have vehicle payments, they don't have any debt, but they're begging for, not begging, They're asking for cash flow, right? They're hoping to get some donations to live. And cash flow is king. And she said, when I heard that podcast, that was like an aha moment. Like, we do need cash flow. So if I take any money that they inherited and I put it into a policy, I'm not going to leave them with as much. They need computers so she can get a job doing something virtual. They need a vehicle so he can travel and do more of his missionary stuff that he wants to do, so he can create more cash flow. So those things they need to generate cash flow, and then that cash flow we will use to start a policy with at some point. But we need cash flow, right? That's just going to be the most important thing. That's where we're going to start the policy from. Okay. I know, Sam. I've noticed you've been gone. Hey, Anita. Good morning, Janine. Yes, Anita, you're right. It is hard. And we need to learn, but let's not feel like we can't learn. Let's not feel like we're too stupid to learn. So that is one thing that guy kept saying yesterday is, I'm too stupid, I'm too stupid. We are what we think, right? And he has been, I don't believe that he's stupid, but he's been beaten down and he's really hard on himself. And that doesn't mean that you can't overcome those things. And we just have to have someone explain it to us so we get it. I have clients who have talked to other infinite banking practitioners, who have talked to other people that teach this concept. And they don't get it. They don't understand what they're talking about. And I'm not going to stop. So the wife, in this particular circumstance, the wife did not understand it. And she looked at her husband and she said, well, you get it, right? And he's like, yeah. And she goes, okay, we're good. I said, no, we're not. I'm not going to stop explaining this until you get it. Because somebody has to take that time. Now, I am not patting myself on the back, but I am pretty good at explaining things at a very simple level because I am very simple. I don't like when people use big words. I don't like when people try to be all fancy. If I have to talk to you and use a dictionary, we have a problem. It is not how I roll. And so if we can just find the right person to share that information with us and teach us, it all starts to click. But we have to figure out where they're at their level. And most people are way up here and they can't come back down, or they don't want to, because they get this little ego thing going on that, oh, I only want people that get it. Well, if we have people that don't get it and we can bring them up here, did we not just help somebody? Right. So we have to put the time in and we have to put the effort in, but it's not hard to learn. All right, had another guy farming with his son and daughter, and this was actually a really fun conversation because him and his wife started from scratch in the 80s. From scratch in the 80s. So when y'all are out there, all these keyboard warriors telling me I'm a moron and people can't start from scratch, well, you can call me a moron all day long, but I talk to people constantly who have started from scratch. These guys didn't even grow up on a farm, okay? They grew up in a farm community, but they didn't grow up farming. And they started from scratch. I don't know what they're farming, 4,000 acres maybe or something like that. But his son and daughter have decided that they want to farm with dad. So kudos to mom and dad because they have an estate plan. They know exactly what they're doing. They do not hardly have any debt at all. They have one loan. They own rental property, they have built an elevator, which I think is awesome because I actually have a lot of clients that have their own elevators. I had not heard of that before. I mean, this is like recent for me. I've probably the last 2 or 3 years I've heard of people building their own elevators. But the one thing that they're doing is that the rental properties, they're super smart that they have the rental, they bought any houses that touch their farm ground. So that someday if town expands, right, they're able to control that. But they're renting these houses out and that is paying for their mortgage. So the little bit of debt that they do have is being paid for by what? Cash flow that's coming into them without them really having to do anything. But they have actually, when they rent ground, they split it. So they're not an LLC, they are not a corporation. Everybody buys their own equipment and they use everybody's equipment and they figure out as a farming unit what that's going to look like. But everybody's got separate pieces. So when they rent ground, they're like, okay, the daughter gets this much, the son gets this much, mom and dad get this much. They have done a great job. In their estate plan, they have set it up so that the off-the-farm kids are each going to get a certain amount of money, and then the farm kids are going to get a certain amount of death benefit. He said to me at the very beginning of the meeting, he said, Mary Jo, I have a confession to make. We had a local guy that he is now passed because he was in his 90s, but he always tried to tell me about this. And he would make comments like, well, I don't need a bank anymore because I'm my own bank. And they actually named him the Bank Bob. Okay. And they would kind of tease about it. And he said, now that I'm not so busy growing my operation and the kids have joined me, I have some time to focus on other things. And when your ad came up on Facebook, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what he was talking about. So this agent had done a great job of selling him term insurance. So the guy's got millions and millions of dollars of term. And I do have to honestly say, I've not seen somebody with that much death benefit. It's very rare. I mean, maybe 3 times I've seen it. He is correctly insured, no question. But it's all term insurance. Because Bob couldn't get him to buy whole life. And if Bob would have seen, like Bob is a long-term thinker, right? He was selling traditional whole life, going to take 20, 25 years to break even. Nobody wants to wait that long. So if he would have had a product that he could have set up for infinite banking and had cash value right away, that would have made a difference to this guy. And so they are doing everything right. They just have that one little piece missing of we need permanent insurance because that's part of the estate plan. The other thing that I would just caution people about is if you have a farm, it's not a corporation. You have rental property that is, these guys with the property is also sole proprietor. I would get that property out into an LLC so the renters can't sue you and take your farm. So on the estate side of things, everything's great. On the other side of things, we need to have a little bit of legal protection just so that we are protecting ourselves to not lose what we've worked so hard to build. And they have done a phenomenal job. So it was really fun talking to them. And it was fun to hear about Bob. I said to them, well, how old is Bob? And they said, well, Bob passed. He was 90. That's why Bob knew about whole life insurance, is because he was 90, right? That most people don't understand it if they're 70 and younger, because they have already those 70 and youngers were already brainwashed into the 401ks and IRAs. I mean, we need to go back 47 years. That's when all that crap started. Before then, what was being used? Same stuff Bob's talking about. Same stuff I'm talking about. So this isn't new. It's just hard to find those people. So that was absolutely fun. And it was fun that the son was in the conversation. So he included the son. He included the daughter couldn't be there, but everybody was included. Those talks were happening. The off the farm kids know exactly what they're going to get. It is not going to be equal. It's going to be fair. And he said, this is what they get, and they're going to shut up about it, basically. He is very upfront, very flat about it, because he started it and didn't have to feel bad about it. And I think it's easy conversation to have, and it is more accepted when we're not wishy-washy, right? And I've said this before, if we have that conversation when everybody's alive, we're going to get to see who is the one that wants the money or is greedy, or it's going to affect it. Find that out when you're alive. Don't let the kids find it out when you're gone. Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, Jim. Okay. Anita, where are you from? Jim, I don't know you either. I like new people. Lee, I don't believe I know you either. New people, awesome. Okay. I had another young guy ranching with dad, and this also was a transition. So dad asked him to come back to the ranch, and because let me think of the story. Because dad didn't transfer, I think grandpa didn't transfer. So dad is in his mid-50s saying, okay, it's time to transfer. So this young couple came back, and dad is completely ready to step away and go get a job off the farm if he needs to, and go to town. He's like 56. He's super young. That is, I have had this probably a handful of times where our 50-year-olds are already making that plan, but this is not normal. But dad is ready to make that transition. So the kid came in and, worked for a couple years. Then he ended up buying some of his own cattle. So now he has this big cattle note. And y'all know, if you've listened to me before, I do not like cattle notes. I just don't like them. And I don't have a reason for it. I just know when people have cattle notes, they typically have financial problems. And they kind of go hand in hand because we don't know what the cattle market's going to do. So I like it when people buy cattle with cash, or they use the policy or whatever, but we're not tied to the bank with those cows. But they have a cattle note, and they are needing, if dad transitions out, they're going to need more cattle. Right? Or they're going to need to buy dad's cattle or something. And so I said, well, could you run dad's cattle custom? So he's paying you, but they're still his cows. Could we bring some custom cattle in to run with our own cattle so that we don't have this huge payment and we have the money coming in? Because again, you guys, I am not ranching. I don't have cattle. But I see the numbers. All day long, I see people's numbers. And those people that have custom cattle, what are we able to do? They're making money. It's a straight up paycheck to you as long as you keep them alive. Right? And you have somebody good that you're working with. But that's income coming to you. So you then have that income to start the policy. So now we have a pool of money we can borrow from to buy those cattle in the future. So can we custom graze for a while, take that money, and then use that to buy our own down the road? Instead of going to the bank and saddling ourselves with all this debt and then trying to take over all the land, we have to have more cattle. We get so far in that now we have this huge risk. And this is the one thing that the next client I'm going to talk about, they bought a ranch off They bought a ranch in a different state. She has a very good job, and so they have really good income. So he quit his job. They're getting everything all set up, but they know they have to start small. Okay? So this is a mindset thing. When we come from a ranch or an operation that's huge, we automatically think we need to start huge. I have talked to people that say, well, I'm in Nebraska. I need 5,000 acres and I'm going to need, 500 head of cows. And they have nothing. Right now they have nothing, but they think that's what they need to get started. Because that's what everybody else has. Well, everybody else did not just start. When we come from these big, huge operations, if we come from it's raining. If we come from an operation that is, 5,000-6,000 acres, that doesn't mean you got to start with 5,000-6,000 acres or you're just not going to make it. No. How much profit do we make? I don't care how many bushels of grain you get. I don't care how many head of cattle you have. What is your profit margin? If you're not creating cash flow that's coming to you and all your cash flow is going out, I don't care what you have. Doesn't matter to me. Because you don't have any money. At the end of the day, it's about making a profit. And we don't know what that profit is if we don't know what our books are. So I love the fact that this guy's dad is wanting to do this transition. The kid just needs to be smart about taking that over and doing it in such a manner that we've planned it out. Okay, there's not really a plan. Dad's just talked about it, but there's not really a plan like the other guy. Like he had it all planned out. He had the attorneys, everything's set, everything's good. We need to have a plan here to set what's that going to look like and where's the money going to come from and all that good stuff. The other couple that moved to a different ranch are going to just start super small, which is awesome. But her idea was, oh, you know what? I am going to cash out all of my 401ks and IRAs and I'm going to put it in life insurance policy. And then we're going to borrow against that. And then we're going to build our buildings and our fences and whatever else they need. And I said, whoa, hold on. I figured you were thinking that, but I don't think that's going to be the best option for you. Because when we put money in the policy, guess what? If you've read either one of these books, you guys see the illustrations. Year one, we don't have access to about 30% of the money. So we only have access to about 70%. So if we put 10 in, we only have access to 7. If we put 100 in, we only have access to 70, right? The math is the same. But do we need the other 30% in their circumstance because he's not working and he's getting everything ready on the farm? Can we give up access to 30%? Probably not. Because we might need that 30% to what? Create cash flow. That cash flow is going to go into a policy. So we can do something for these guys. It's just going to be a much smaller policy than what she had anticipated. And then we're going to build onto that. But in their circumstance, I prefer that they start using some of that as cash with the intent to always pay themselves back plus interest, which will also go back into the policy. That reminds me too of the guy farming with his son and daughter. He wanted to take, and I get this a lot, we read the book and we're super excited, and so we want to take grain sales, for example. And let's just use a number, let's just say $100,000, okay? Because he's got a large operation, so he's got millions of dollars of operating. So he wants to take, let's just say he wants to take $100,000 and put it in as premium. Well, now we got to take that $100,000 and he wants to borrow from the policy to pay off the line of credit. So if we do that, then what? We still owe the policy. We've put money in the policy. We borrowed against that. We paid off the line of credit, so the bank is gone, but we still owe our policy. All we did was move our debt from the bank to the life insurance policy, but we need to buy grain. We need to buy seed and fertilizer and chemical, right? Next year. Okay, so we paid off our line of credit so we can go there, but we didn't pay off our policy. So now we still owe our policy $100,000, and now we have to go to the bank and borrow $100,000 from there again, and we have to pay premium. In that scenario, all we're doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul. If that scenario would work if he didn't borrow the money from the policy to pay off a line of credit. If he borrowed the policy to pay off a tractor, different story. Because now the tractor can be paid back very slowly to the life insurance policy. He's not going to need it again for operating, right? If we're going to borrow for operating to pay off operating, we now need this back for operating. So that scenario, even though I use that scenario in the book, what I don't talk about in the book is we're not borrowing policy money to pay off an operating note. We are borrowing policy money to use for operating. So we are using policy money to buy seed, fertilizer, chemical, hay, whatever, fuel, right? We're using it for that, and then we sell the commodity and we pay it back. I'm not using it to pay down another debt just to move a debt over. I hope that makes sense. So some people come in and they want to start super high, and they want to have these huge premiums that match their operating. And I can't do that because we still have to pay the bank. We have to be smart about that. I am not here to watch your operation go upside down. It's the opposite of why we're here. Oh, thanks, Janine. Oh, Western Kentucky. Oh. Oh, yes, I had to switch the evenings. It's nice out here now, Lee. Well, I hope you heal from your surgery quickly. Southern Illinois. Illinois. It's kind of like Oregon. Southwest Wisconsin. Okay, I'd like to see where you guys are from. All right. And then I had, let's see. Oh, I had another lady that I talked to that this is interesting because she has a really good job and her husband farms. And so she has always stayed out of it and not paid attention because as long as they've been married, he's always made money until he didn't. And so the last 3 years have been really tough. And last year was really bad. So now all of a sudden we have $5 million in debt. The bank said, no, thank you. You can go somewhere else because we don't want that. And so they are having to refinance a lot of that. Some of it is land, but she really didn't know. We had no numbers, which was very difficult. And so we didn't get a lot accomplished in that meeting. Now, when you guys make an appointment with me, you get an email saying, hey, these are the things we're going to need to talk about. And she didn't see that email because sometimes it goes to junk. So she didn't have her numbers. She is a very organized person. So she would have had those numbers, but she didn't have those numbers and she had no clue on any of them, not even a guess, because of the fact that she has not paid attention until now. And the only reason she's paying attention to now is because we have to take some operating money and term it out. We couldn't pay all of our operating back. So now we're having to term it out to the tune of $5 million wrapping everything together into one loan. Don't know what we're wrapping up in there because we've not paid attention. And so I see this a lot. So many farm wives are either working off the farm or the husband has always done it and we've stayed out of it. You can't stay out of it because if something happens to him, you need to know what's going on. And I told her that and she said, that's exactly right. That's exactly why I am now starting to pay attention. Because we have debt and I need to know what's happening. So if something does happen to him, right? And he is like, oh, that's just how it is, right? Not a big deal. He doesn't think it's a big deal because it's part of farming. He hasn't fully reacted to or prepared for the what ifs because he's always made money. And we are now in a what if. What if I don't make money? What if we have a bad year? So when he's made money, what does he do? He always buys stuff to avoid taxes. And she said, I've been yelling at him for that for years. Why don't we just save it? Why don't we just keep it? Why don't we just use it? So even on the wife's side, a lot of times they're saying, you know what, I'm done because you're not listening to me. Men, we need to listen. When they're asking questions and they're wanting to participate, we need to listen. Okay? We need to give them some credibility. I met with a young couple a little while back, and he didn't give her any credit for anything. And I came in and basically said the same thing she's been saying, and now all of a sudden, he gives her some credit for some stuff. It doesn't have to come from me. If they're asking the questions, my God, think about it. Be open-minded about it. When you say, well, you don't know anything about farming, what she's going to do, she's going to quit participating. But that doesn't mean she quits worrying about the finances. There is risk that a lot of farm wives who didn't grow up in farming don't understand. There is risk there. There is also this particular couple I talked to a while back. She grew up with no debt ranching. He grew up with debt ranching. She knew it could be done without debt. He didn't think it could. So, who's right? I don't know that either one of them are. They just need to come together and listen to each other. And this lady is like, hey, I've had enough. I'm going to participate and we are going to find a different way. Because she has understood all along that we don't need to buy things to avoid taxes. Why are we doing that? We cannot just go out and plant and harvest. Dad maybe did it that way, but we better be looking at our numbers. And there was no number looking. There was because I asked her. I said, who keeps the books? Oh, the accounting firm. So do they keep them monthly or do they just do them at the end of the year? She's like, I don't know. She said, I'm pretty sure they just do them at the end of the year because that's what I've heard him do. So if we're just doing it at the end of the year, we're only doing it to avoid taxes. We're not actually doing it to see what we are making per acre. We're not doing it to see what our cost of inputs are per acre. We're not doing, if we needed to know what our cost of inputs are per acre, that means we are marketing our grain so we can market it at a profit. But if we're not doing that, how do we know what it's costing us per acre? Because we don't have the accounting. We need the accounting. This dude is in for a rude awakening because she is going to be like, this is what we're doing. We're not going upside down because guess what? If they do, she's liable for it. She's liable for it. And on top of that, they have a bunch of universal life. So we got to look at that. See what's happening there. Hey, Dawn. Thank you. That's it. That was everybody for the week. I had other people, clients. I really did have another full week of clients that have been approved, and then we sit down with them and look at all their stuff. And I had a couple of those this week that, things changed in the meantime again. Some of them were like, yep, we're ready to go. Let's just go. Other ones that are just trying to figure out, like, still, where do we start? What does that look like? And so everybody's different. Everybody's in a different spot. Everybody has to start different. And we'll do what's right on this side. I got an email last night from somebody that just said, timing's just not good due to some changes that happened in the last 4 to 6 weeks. And so that happens. That happens. All right. As always, if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, you can message me here. You can, oh my gosh, I gotta sneeze. Oh, sorry. I was trying to hold off and I couldn't do it. If you have questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Message me here. Email me, maryjo@withoutthebank. If you would share anything Farming Without the Bank related, that would be awesome. Facebook is saying, we're going to pick and choose what we do now. But if you have not gotten these books, and if you've not gotten Nelson's book, get them all. Or at least get one of these and Nelson's and get the bundle. But they are so, so super useful and important to read in the process of learning all this. But if you've got the books, then you can go ahead after you've read it, set up your appointment, and I'm happy to meet. But that's all I've got today. Unless you guys have questions or something, just let me know, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.